Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our latest SEGRA conversation for 2020. It's actually conversation 32, and we've got a few more to go. So before we have a break over Christmas. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Charters. I'm the chair of the National Steering Committee for SEGRA. And SEGRA is the acronym for Sustainable Economic Growth for Regional Australia. SEGRA is recognised as Australia's most credible, independent voice on issues affecting regional Australia. It was established 24 years ago, and it was set up to ensure that issues affecting regional, rural and remote Australia were given a voice on the national agenda. SEGRA aims to encourage networking, sharing of ideas, success stories, policy proposals and research amongst regional economic developers, community developers, government, elected officials, private and not-for-profit sectors and researchers. Joining me today is Robert Prestipino, the Principal of Vital Places. Robert has extensive experience in place-based thinking and design thinking and has a particular interest in whole of community engagement in developing investable business cases. And Robert, Mary and I have been working on a project in the Darling Downs region for some time now. Before I welcome and introduce our speakers for today, I'd just like to run over some housekeeping. As we're fully subscribed, the format does not allow for a direct speaking from registrants. However, if I could encourage you to use the Q&A or the chat button to participate, and I'll try to get to as many of your questions as I can. The webinars are all recorded and are available on the SEGRA website on Friday at www.segra.com.au. And they're also available on the SEGRA YouTube channel. I'd now like to warmly welcome Mary, Reid and Trudi Bartlett to our webinar. Mary has been in the cake making and decorating business for some 20 years, it says here almost 40 years. You don't look old enough, Mary, to have been in something for 40 years. And Mary has run a very successful cake decorating and training business in Highfields. And she's a leading trainer in Queensland and one of the most consistent and highest award winners with ABIA. And so at the national level, they've been in the top 3 ABI awards in Australia since 2009. So congratulations on that, Mary, and we'll be talking about your new role this year, as well as your very deep knowledge of business operations. Trudi is the Director of Regional Development, RDA Darling Downs and South West, commenced her role in August 2018. Previously, the Economic Development Senior Officer for Western Downs Regional Council and the Member Services Manager for the Dalby Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And again, this reflects Trudi's deep knowledge and commitment to local business and economic development. And we've certainly welcomed Trudi in her new role as the Director at RDA. Prior to these jobs, Trudi was the Chief Executive Officer for Transforming Small Businesses, an organisation that advised small businesses in rural areas. During her role at Transforming Small Business, she had contract work with state government, chambers of commerce, federal government under the Small Business Advisory Service, BIDO, and with multiple local governments. So again, a wealth and depth of experience. Trudi's passion is obviously in supporting rural and regional and remote Queensland, and certainly is using her position in RDA to ensure economic development in regional, rural and remote areas remains strong. So welcome, Mary and Trudi. The title for today's session is Will COVID-19 permanently revive buy local, or will we go back to cheap imports. And I guess that all of us have seen newspaper stories, encouraging and edifying newspaper stories about people, perhaps because of lockdown, being forced to buy locally, but also a more general interest in sourcing closer to home. So I guess this is one of the things that we notice about small businesses is together they make up something far more valuable than anything they do or sell. And that's the role they play in building local communities. And I was reading a story yesterday about a Virgin Airline pilot who set up a coffee shop in a country town that he was living in while working as a pilot. And he commented on the enormous sense of community that he felt there. Small businesses, as people know, contribute to a third of our economic activity, keep millions of Australians in jobs, and are responsible for paying wages to more than half of our workforce. So they're vital to our everyday lives, especially now as we go into our economic recovery post-COVID. This year has been tough for small businesses and they need our support. This could be as simple as eating or getting takeaway from a local restaurant or cafe, buying your mum's next birthday gift from a local shop, or liking and leaving positive reviews on their social media pages. So there are countless small ways to support small business again. And one of the ways that we're going to be looking at today is called Let's Go Local First. And Mary is an ambassador for this, recently announced for Go Local First. And so I'd like to welcome you, Mary, and ask you, what is the Go Local First campaign about?
Well, thank you, Kate, and thank you, SEGRA, for the opportunity. I think we've all been involved in some type of buy local campaign over the last 20, 30, 40 years. But I think Go Local First has brought with it a new connotation. And my observation and working to the Go Local First parameters is that right now we're all in this together. Go Local First means that the consumer has changed its buying mode of behaviour. They're now looking for things and purchases that are closer to home. They want to buy things, and whether it's a local pub meal, whether it's tangible products, whether it's checking the labels of the items on the shelf at the grocery store, or whether it's something like, where is the trailer that they want to tow behind their truck? Where is it produced? Does the steel in the trailer come from Australia, or is it flat packed and brought in from China, or where? I was recently part of a discussion where a gentleman asked, well, if the steel comes in from a trading partner like France or Germany, that's okay. I've been told from staff at Bunnings that they no longer bring in flat packs of almost any products that come from China. So I think the consumer is very conscious that they want to keep local staff employed in local jobs, and therefore, whether it's potatoes, tomatoes, whatever, they're looking for jobs that keep products that keep locals in jobs close to home. So this comes back to the pandemic. The pandemic has taught us all to think family, jobs, local, close to home. And I think the federal government, in partnership with the Council of Small Business, was very clever in coming up with the slogan, Go Local First. And I think that's what this Buy Local campaign, Go Local First, is all about. It's an extension, a natural progression of all the other Go Local campaigns. So it's not that anything we've had previously was wrong. It's just that at this time and place, this is the right context for Go Local First.
Terrific. And certainly COVID has really knocked around small businesses. I know that 3 in 4 small businesses have seen a decline in revenue of up to 75%. And rightly or wrongly, very often small businesses don't have the financial buffer to weather such a dramatic thing. Now, we, of course, have always been at SEGRA very pro local and try ourselves to always buy in the local region when we're there. Understand this campaign is particularly targeting small businesses, but tell me a bit more, Mary, about the regional perspective.
Well, I live in a small region. I live in Toowoomba. Toowoomba is very fortunate, very progressive, but at the same time, it has a very rural footprint. And I'm also very fortunate in one way that I've got a very in-depth knowledge of the wedding industry, and small businesses in the wedding industry have really, really struggled during this pandemic. We had statistics the other night that 70% of vendors across Australia have lost their business through the pandemic. And I think the statistics were something like the Australian wedding industry is $7.1 billion of the Australian economy. So you translate that to what it means to small businesses. So at a regional level, I believe that we can do a lot to support small vendors, micro businesses, by encouraging them to stop thinking competition and start thinking collaboration, to start thinking networks and cooperation. And that is the angle I'll be encouraging as we work together in collaboration partnerships here in Toowoomba. And that's where angles that Trudi and I'll be talking about as Trudi takes her message west. And last Friday, we had our very first meeting in a wedding industry collaboration, which was an absolutely brilliant outcome. We brought together the Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce, the Highfields District Business Connections, representative from the Australian Bridal Industry Association, Ian Wickham, who also has his own wedding industry business, and a lady called Kim Cahill, who has an incredibly successful social media platform. So between us, we're looking at how we can put new life into small vendors in the wedding industry. And some of the strategies we're looking at both a top-down and a bottom, because the top end of the wedding industry in Toowoomba is incredibly successful. And they have some of the most amazing venues. Australia's #1 venues are here in Toowoomba. And if we can put life and create purpose and enough action by encouraging locals to continue to support the smaller businesses and put them back on the map and on the road to a post-COVID recovery, we believe that we can help the smaller businesses in the wedding industry on the road to recovery. And that's what we're looking.
Terrific. Thank you, Mary. And I was surprised when I was reading an article perhaps about that meeting in the Chronicle, I think it was, to see just how many wedding venues were in the footprint of your area. And then, of course, you look at the supply chains linked with that. So it's not an insignificant regional industry. Trudi, can I turn to you now and ask you if you could just talk to us a little bit from your experience about the impact small businesses have on the economy and particularly regional economies.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Kate. When you look at Toowoomba, that Mary has spoken about, but probably the broader rural and remote across all of Australia, those small towns exist thanks to small businesses. You know, like we've got so many towns where potentially the local council is the biggest employer, and, you know, 90 to 95% of the employment in those towns are in businesses that are actually classed as micro, not even small business. You know, and we need those small businesses to keep going for those towns to keep going. You start losing those businesses out of the town, you start losing people. So, you know, that's why we're pretty passionate about this program. Certainly not saying that the Go Local First program is the be all and end all of any buy local campaign. There's lots out there that maybe a local chamber runs, or you know, another organisation runs for their own community. Keep those going. And one of the reasons I quite like the Go Local First program is they're not in competition with any of that. They're saying like they're another layer. But you know, I look at it and go, well, it's a federal government funded layer. We want to have as many of our businesses like Mary actually engaged with the platform, because it does give them another lot of marketing, another lot of advertising, and because it's federal funded, it doesn't cost them anything. So, you know, over the years, we've seen plenty of really good local campaigns. I think one that came out during the drought and the fires was Buy from the Bush, which is still going. I think they're great campaigns. You know, we want them to keep going and see them successful, because you're right, Kate, the economic impact, especially to our rural and remote, is significant if small businesses can keep going and we support them. And, you know, I certainly hope, you know, in your question in the email out, you know, but will it last? I think now is the time to embrace it. We have got this appetite with the general consumer that they actually really do want to support local. You know, this has, I think that started with the drought and the bushfires. I think it's continued with COVID. So, you know, as much as they're three horrible things, it actually has instigated this increase appetite to support our small businesses and support our local, and ask the questions, where did this come from? And I think now is the key to really make sure our small businesses are embracing it. The flip side of it being in lockdown was that there was an increase in online shopping, which can be that online shopping is eBay and Amazon and those sorts of things. But my thing to say to small businesses around that is you need to have an online presence, you know, and so you can support local, you can support rural and remote and regional via the internet, you know, and we've seen such an increase over this year of businesses go, hey, this is kind of really now forced me into making sure I have also that online digital presence, which I think is brilliant. You know, we can now capitalize on that to make sure that we do answer your question of, but will it last? Yes, it will. Get the footprint now though, you know, get that exposure now. And I see the Go Local First campaign as one layer of many, but one layer of businesses to, you know, register, costs you nothing, register, it's federal government funded, make the most of it, to get that increase in exposure and be, you know, a profiled business thanks to the Go Local First funding.
So tell me a bit more about that. If you want to participate, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I believe I'm Regional Development Australia. I'm certainly not the Go Local First guys, but talking to them, you know, about how you go about it, is there is just a get involved button on the top of their website. So you can click on that. You send in a spiel about your business, and then they have a look at that, and then they can load you up on the website, and then they have got a social media campaign that they do. And as I said, this is one extra layer to other marketing you should be doing. But this is a free layer, you know, so probably Mary, who has actually been through the process, can tell you about, you know, how easy it was to register and to become a highlighted business. You know, my thing to those listening on the webinar today, or who watch it later, is, you know, go have a look at the Go Local First website and look at it, because, you know, it doesn't cost money and it's not a lot of work. But Mary could certainly talk you through the actual process. She's been and done it.
Mary,
It is
would you
really
like
very,
to chip in there?
yeah, it is very simple. It is, you go online, as Trudi said, you follow 3 or 4 prompts and leads. They come back with a questionnaire, and they must do a reality check as well. And when you answer their Q&As, they come back with a draft, and you're happy or you're not. And mine was a bit more complicated because old Mary here was in retirement and had to justify why she was coming out. But for the operator, small business operator, micro business operator who's really out there looking for the business profile, perfect. So I would encourage as many micro businesses. There are some criteria. It can't be backyard operators. It has to be small business operators, registered, etc. But it is perfect for in the bush, the regional communities. It's perfect. It's a great way, particularly now when we're in the midst of grain season. Wonderful news for people with caravans and travelling, and how do we find, someone in Chinchilla and, I don't know, Gumbunji and wherever. It's brilliant.
And Mary, tell us about the initiative that led to the wedding industry meeting, how that came about.
When I put together my strategy for how I saw Maryvale was able to contribute to a Go Local campaign, and coming from my sphere of marketing, I've always been a policy and marketing person. I went straight to a top-end, high-level marketing strategy, and that was always to work business to business. But in the last 9 months, I've been doing one-on-one marketing with the micro businesses here in Highfields. So I know success that one-on-one has brought these single operators, home-based operators, and having such a long career with the wedding industry. I know that the wedding industry background. My entree into Go Local came from a phone call from the Australian director of the Australian Bridal Academy, and she said, now that you're out of retirement doing community classes, Mary, I think we would like to see you step up and take up a role as a small business advocate for the Bridal Academy. Would you do that? That's how I got involved. The intent to get involved led me immediately to, if I'm going to do this for the Bridal Academy and do it for the wedding industry, my first platform has to be looking at what has to be done for the wedding industry. So bringing together the players was who needs to be involved. We can't do this in Toowoomba, in Highfield, without the Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce. Sitting around the table last week was the wedding industry, was the business group from Highfields and the Chamber of Commerce. And in the first 5 minutes, the first thing missing in Toowoomba, the Toowoomba region does not have a wedding industry strategy. When Ian Wickham told us the first line of statistics from the night before or 2 nights before, when he rolled out the statistics, Chamber of Commerce CEO Todd Rolls said, we have to have a wedding industry strategy for Toowoomba. That's it. It was as simple as that. We do not have one in a region this size. And when it leads on to what Trudi is doing out west, if we can get one for Toowoomba, and if we can get a tech for how to make it work in Toowoomba, we've got something for Trudi to take to her other 9 mares. The bottom line is, I know how simple it would be to have an industry policy or an industry strategy, and for Trudi to pick it up and run with it.
Trudi,
so with those, with those key players there, we shape strategy on the spot. So we're ready to roll.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, Mary, and congratulations for that initiative. Trudi, tell us a bit more about how you see this rolling out within the RDA, Darling Downs Southwest region. What sorts of thoughts are you having at the moment about where this might go?
Yeah, so certainly we would be using our database and our social media, the RDA social media, to connect with our business community to say, you know, this is something we think you should take up. You know, like as Mary said, it's free, it's not that hard to do, it's a bit of a no-brainer that you should add this to your marketing collateral, you know, and footprint. One of the things we have done is actually been in touch with Go Local First around how do we turn that into a potential campaign. So what they have done for particular industries or particular regions, I think it was Goulburn from memory, but I may have the area wrong, was there was a conglomerate, like a group of businesses that all wanted to go together to on the Go Local page to be promoted as a community. So we're looking at doing something similar for Darling Downs Southwest. So we have 10 council areas. Mary's obviously already on board, and Go Local First have indicated to us that probably 20 is a good number, you know, to start with as a conglomerate, like as a collaborative approach. So, you know, basic math, 2 per region is a nice footprint. So we would use our stakeholders in both councils, progress associations and chambers of commerce to connect with 2 businesses that we think would give us a good range across industries and across our geographical footprint to then, you know, coordinate with Go Local First that they do a particular campaign for our region on that. So that's how we're looking at it as a regional rollout, and RDA's role in it is, you know, we're funded to be that coordinator and connector and collaborator. So for us, it's around using our networks to say who are our 20 businesses, getting them on board, you know, and then feeding that to Go Local First, and then Go Local First will do the job that they're funded to do, and then we would share it across our region. So that's what the rollout is looking for us. Like, we're very lucky that Mary's already on this. She's, you know, going gung-ho. She's, you know, a little pocket rocket, decided this is what she wanted to do, got in touch with us and said this could be something RDA roll out. Definitely fits within our charter. So, you know, it's a bit of a no-brainer again for us to go, all right, let's connect up our businesses and really showcase them. So our role would be finding those businesses, promoting it to them and getting the information from them and getting it back to Go Local First, but also at the same time making sure we've got a nice mix of industries in there to really showcase, you know, the variety we have across Darling Downs Southwest. You know, so that's where I'm looking at using it, and happy to publicly say that on your webinar. I go, look, Darling Downs Southwest is not unique. You know, go ahead. You know, this is a federal portal for everybody. Let's be making the most of it across all of Australia for our rural and remote. You know, that's certainly where my passion is, and let's get those, you know, businesses that are crucial, absolutely crucial to those economies. They don't have a big industry or a group of big employers normally. They need this extra profile. You know, they need this extra support, and it's funded, so let's make the most of it.
Trudi, Trudi, I'd like to maybe unpack that a bit too. Your thoughts about the capacity of making a difference of spending local, because I know in lots of regions anyway, we tend to buy local already. I'm just wondering where you see the real opportunity to make a difference. Is it more about more local procurement, more local visitor spending, or in some ways that the locals that live in regions generally buy locally what they can anyway, because at the end of the day, we still will spend externally on things we can't get locally. So I'm just wondering, in this initiative, where do you actually see the opportunities where we could pick up local spending that we're missing now in a regional sense?
Robert, really great question. Like, let's face it, the Go Local First program and some of the other local, buy local programs that do focus on the small businesses certainly do make a difference. And you're right, a lot of your locals are already buying local anyway. Well, we certainly hope so. When you look at that local procurement piece, that is separate to the Go Local campaign, because that's not what they're about. It can make a massive difference. So if you have a look at the Nexus second range crossing, so major piece of infrastructure for those that aren't Queensland on the call, major piece of infrastructure in Toowoomba that was a bypass of Toowoomba pretty much. So the second range crossing is what it's commonly known as. Multi-billion-dollar project. There was a group of ourselves, State Development, the local Chamber of Commerce, another enterprise group here in Toowoomba that basically started conversations with that major project long before it started around setting local content benchmarks. And defining local content is what I would recommend to anybody. You can talk to major projects or even tier one proponents and they'll say, yeah, we buy local. And you ask the question, what's your definition of local? In a lot of the federal agreements, it's Australasia. So all of Australia plus Asia is classed as local. And what we're talking about when we're talking a major project is usually the postcode of the area where it's a very different definition. So my number one tip is always define that and make sure then it is actually recorded by postcode and reported on by postcode. So you can really track what is the township's benefit to that. Then what is the region? So say for us, that goes from Toowoomba, as an example, to Darling Downs. And then what is the Southeast Queensland effect? And then what is the Queensland? And then what is the Australia? And try and get them to report according to that. So the Toowoomba second range crossing was a really good example of where that worked very well. And we ended up with over 80% local content, meaning postcode 4350, which is amazing. Absolutely crazy. We've got some really good councils that do the same thing, you know, that report on their local procurement. And my question whenever they report on it, so for example, I think an email came out yesterday from Toowoomba Regional Council and they're sitting on about 63% for the month of October. My first question is, so what's the other 37%? What is it that you can't get locally? Like if you're going local first, if you're trying local first and truly trying local first, what is that other stuff? Because to me, that potentially is a new business we can attract to the region. You know, like have we got enough volume? It needs to be financially sustainable, but have we got enough volume that then becomes a business that can come to our region? Now, the flow-on effect to that is massive. You're right. Like we have got the economic impact calculator for Darling Downs Southwest that we fund on ID Profile, and we can put in projects over $100,000, and the economic impact tends to be about a 2.3 flow-on effect to the broader community. So you start adding that up with that. Economic impact calculator, we can only put the biggest stuff in there. As I said, it doesn't go less than 0.1 of a million, so 100,000. But if you look at a lot of small local businesses who employ 2-3 people all added up, that then becomes the same as that major projects flow on economic impact calculator. You know, so the math is still the same, just we don't have enough to put that into the model to add up the math. So, you know, a 2.3 multiplier is fairly typical as to the flow-on effect of where that dollar then continues to be spent in a region of our size. So that's a good calculator, but you're right. There's the small business aspect to it, but certainly local procurement across major projects, and probably for us, it's our local councils because they are some of our biggest employers in a lot of our council areas. It is essential that they too have a local procurement policy. And some of our councils, because they understand that multiplier, have a 5%, and some of them even have a 10% leeway. So what that means is, just say there's a big thing that somebody's tendering for, and a local business tenders for it, and they are 10% more expensive than a non-local based business or a city-based business. The council are allowed to go with the local that is 10% higher, because they know the flow and economic impact of that being in their region. So we have, it's a mix across our 10 councils, but we have councils that some are at 5% and some are at 10%. Some have got different local procurement policies, but that needs to be in there with this buy local. You know, it's certainly, you know, and we need big tier 1 contractors and our local councils to also preach go local first. Yeah. You know, and I think that's a key piece. Really good question, Robert.
I'd like to put in there that there's a few councils who are working on this local procurement, and the Goldfield Esperance Development Commission has put a lot of work into assisting local businesses to have the capacity to engage in the process, and I'm certainly interested in collecting together some case studies on that. So if you're one of our participants is part of a region that has got some particular strategies to enable local businesses to participate in the procurement process, I'd be interested in hearing about that. I just want to go back though to something that both Mary and you have said, and I'm going to also ask Robert to speak on this, is we've heard about collaboration, and we've heard about cooperation and coordination and all sorts of things, but a term that I really like is cooperation. And I'd like, first of all, you, Trudi, to talk a little bit about how competing businesses can collaborate or cooperate in a way that makes 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, you know, it does make a difference, and I love you changing all those C words into a cooperation. I think is a really great way to look at it. And Mary and what she's doing for the wedding industry is a very good example. We also see a lot of it with our tourism operators. So across our region, let's face it, somebody is not driving 600 kilometres to go see one tourist thing. It's just too far to go see one. You can't be thinking that you are competing. You need to work together, and we see that done very well in some of our council areas with tourism operators. Mary's doing something similar here around the wedding industry, so I'll get her to talk to that. But an example I also saw of this in the past, and you ran through at the beginning, Kate, my past roles, was over in the South Burnett. So the South Burnett was starting to get a bit of traction on being a wine region. You know, so people were going there and they had a little wine trail, and there was one of the businesses that were looking at trying to sell and whether or not an owner would take them on, and a new owner would take them on. And the other wine operators all supported trying to find this winery a new owner, because they didn't see them as a competitor. If they realised that if they lost that wine industry, that wine business, that was one less reason for you to come to that area, because people were coming there so they could see 6 or 7 wine businesses, you know, and go to visit 6 or 7 wineries. They weren't going to drive from the East Coast all the way over to Mergen or Kingaroy to see less wine. And so I think that's a really good example of where it is essential that you cooperate, even though technically you are in direct competition. You've got to package your offering. And I think that tourism and hospitality, and certainly Mary's got great examples with the wedding industry, it's that cooperation that is essential to them being able to pitch your region for that certainly that tourism and visitor dollar.
That strategic thinking, and Mary's talked about having a wedding industry strategy, I think is an important, a very important and not to be underestimated element of that cooperation. and I'll just turn to Robert briefly, because Robert has an enormous skill set in design thinking, and I was involved in a project where with Robert, where the community had come together looking to get government funding to upgrade the turf club. And over a few months of Robert working with them, gradually the community came to build that vision into an equestrian centre of excellence for the whole region, rather than just a single thing. And Robert, I might just ask you, from your own experiences in working at a place-based level with competing industries, to try and get investable business cases up.
Yes, Kate, thanks for that. Yeah, a lot of it's about, I suppose, brand and place identity, and it flows on from the discussion about clustering and layering businesses and experience. So, which is in that sort of cooperation thread you've got there. So we're moving out of those competitive silos into particularly this networked solutions. And from a place-based point of view, that is following on from what Trudi was saying. It's very experiential. So it's not one experience, it's a cluster of experiences, and the cluster of those experiences in a place forms its identity. And it's interesting that that does separate. When you look at buy local first, there's a few things that sort of filter out of that, that we're seeing that a strong part of the experiential economy is food, culture, say boutique retail, that can be a cluster in any main street, any town, that's really part of its experiential identity. So that creates spending in place around that food, culture, boutique sort of retail. But then you've got the other aspect of, buy local, where you've got local businesses that are connecting via, say, the internet and platforms. And again, what Trudi was saying is external people, maybe in urban areas, spending their money in regional communities for product or whatever. So again, these strategies are quite interesting. So we need to you can have different place-based buy local opportunities. And then for some local businesses, their really buy local opportunity is communicating to the broader world to get sort of some online shopping cash flow. And that's a different technique and a different combination. And I think all these rich layers are coming up. And one of actually the things that I wouldn't mind Mary commenting on, and I know she's experienced a lot since COVID, is this other shift that's happening out there from employee to micro entrepreneur. There's some people that know their jobs aren't coming back and are shoved down, and that's a different sense of buy local that's emerging. And I wouldn't mind Mary just commenting on the scale of that, because that's something new that's really come out of COVID for regional areas.
Okay. Well, there's 3 questions there, Robert. I'm just not sure which one you want me to answer, Kate.
I'd say the micro entrepreneur emergence is very interesting.
Okay. Well, short story. I've spent the last 9 months, to the listeners, Kate, conducting one how to write a media release session for my local micro friend businesses, and with amazing success. Trudi knows most of these young ladies, and they're all young women. Some of them have lost their jobs, gone from two income families down to single, some are turning their hobbies into single income. Some have just decided not going from a corporate field into whatever. But in my both public sector and corporate career, I had a long career as a marketer. And I ran a very successful class called How to Go from Hobby to Business. And one of the very small sessions of that was how to write a media release. So I've turned this session into such a successful class, I've now been able to tailor it to probably 15 or 20 ladies. They've got front page Chronicle, front page Herald, front page Dolby, page 2, page 5. It's an amazing success story. But what has come out of it is newfound businesswomen have got clarity, they've got change in direction, they have got a new business strategy, they have changed business intent, and they have come forward from do I or don't I? Yes, I do. When do I jump now? They've got new pricing models. So I think what COVID has given them, it's given them a gap year technically from university almost. It's given them a change of direction. It's given them time to breathe. It's given them time to go home and rethink. It's given them a breathing space. Some of them come back with their big blotting papers filled with pink Post-it notes, blue for this, yellow for that, green for this. It's amazing, the turnaround. So in a way, COVID has taken them from a mundane life of whatever their 9-to-5 job was into a greenfield site of starting again. And I come away so proud that just with a little sprinkle of how to write a media release has given them a bit of clarity. So the entrepreneur that has surfaced out of this is Phoenix Rising in so many fields. And one of these was a young lady who's gone on to wash cars, tickle pink. So yes, COVID has brought out the new entrepreneur or others who have refreshed their strategy or others who have found product diversity. And as Trudi was talking about her other 9 mares, one of these young ladies, and this is a snapshot of what has happened to her in 7 months. Well, we're now 9 months or 10 months. But in December, she was a masseuse and having troubles with something similar to RSI. In February, she was a soap maker. In March, she'd won a bushfire stimulus package. In April, she was delivering soaps to the Australian embassies in France through her stimulus package. She was negotiating with, I don't know, one of the, 2 of the, I think of councils out west for specialist products that you can only get out west because she will only buy local specialist products. She won't import them into her unique, organic, handmade soaps. Now this lady has gone from zero, in ground zero, to now being a national marketing guru with, and I will say, no business system to support her because supply and demand just are nowhere near a match. Oh. So these are the micro businesses that we have suddenly hit the market through the pandemic. Oh. Oh. And these are the individuals that I'm trying to nurture through one single class, how to write a media release. And out of that is coming such a wonderful set of butterflies that are hitting this world that we had no idea are out there.
Look, Mary, that's a fabulously encouraging story, and people will know that I am a strong proponent of the belief that innovation and entrepreneurship is born in regional Australia, and it's not necessarily this razzmatazz of star academic gurus and engineers that, if you look around regional Australia, there's no doubt that there are some amazing innovative stories, such as the one that you've just told, but also not just the homemade products, but businesses like software businesses that are started in regional Australia that go across the world, and farm machinery. There's, I can bring to mind at least 10 businesses that have developed their own farm machinery that they're now selling around the world. So they're inspiring stories. We're nearly out of time. We've got time for a couple of questions if anyone wants to ask, but I think we've certainly had a very practical session today, and so that's helped. But Trudi, can I'll just throw to you perhaps to wind up, and some final suggestions that you might make that the people who are listening can take back to their region. What might be some of the things that you would encourage people to as take-home messages from today?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Kate. First of all, if you're a small business online today, like Mary, go have a look at the golocalfirst.com.au website and do what Mary's done. She explained how easy it was. As I said, it certainly is not the the be all and end all, but it'll be another easy layer to your marketing strategy that's going to actually cost you no amount of money. So I would get behind that. The feds have funded it. Let's get as many businesses as we can on there. And for those that are online and they're more in maybe a regional leadership or a Chamber of Commerce, Progress Association, other RDAs, we got a couple of good fights that we need to keep fighting on this local and supporting businesses in our rural and remote and regional areas. And, Robert brought up a good point earlier, procurement is big, local procurement, and keep asking the questions, what's your definition of local content? What's your benchmark for this project or for the council that you want to actually achieve? And as regional and rural and remote leaders, how do we help you get more local content happening, whether that be attracting a new business or getting a business to pivot into another area? Is that business missing out on the work because they haven't got, a right piece of paperwork or a capability statement or whatever it is that it needs? I think there's a role to help those businesses then get that work. And that's a good fight to keep fighting. And just remember that the Go Local First is one of many, many ways we can support local. But at least those two prongs, keep finding the local content procurement piece and add this to your marketing, because it's not going to cost you any money, so why not?
And look, thanks Trudy, that's terrific, and we'll certainly put a link to the Go Local portal in our email advising you about the availability of the webinar recording, so that you'll have it right. You'll have it right there. So look, if I could just, look, there we are. Trudy's put it up now. Thank you very much. So it's in the chat box now. If people would like to access that straight away. So thanks very much for that, Trudy. Thank you, Mary and Trudy, both very much for your participation today. It's been very exciting to hear about this new campaign, but also to hear some of the real life experiences from the regional and rural and remote Australia, which of course Trudy covers all of those gambits. So thank you very much. I'll just tell you a little bit about next week. Again, it's looking at a post-COVID world, and there's been much talk about building back better. But what does better actually look like, and how do we get there? And that's the question that Alex Hammett from the Yunus Centre at Griffith will be looking at, Griffith University will be looking at next week. What is better could mean in the context of social and economic recovery, and the ways of working that can turn challenging times into opportunity. And Alex is a very interesting, has a very interesting background in strategy, capability building, partnership, brokering, and innovation. And he has broad international experience working in a range of fields, including poverty alleviation, sustainability, climate change, social enterprise, and impact investment. So a lot of themes that are very, very current in the regional discussions about attracting investment, but also in ensuring community well-being and sustainability as part of that. So I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday for our discussion with Alex. Thank you, Mary and Trudi, once again.